Welcome to Lesson 16.1 on Data Privacy and Artificial Intelligence. This lesson addresses one of the most critical topics for modern grant professionals, protecting sensitive information when using AI tools. As artificial intelligence becomes increasingly integrated into grant work, from drafting proposals to analyzing data, understanding privacy implications becomes essential for ethical and legal practice. The convenience and efficiency gains from AI tools must be balanced against serious privacy obligations that grant professionals hold. We will explore what types of data require protection, how AI tools process information, and practical strategies for using these powerful technologies responsibly. By the end of this lesson, you will understand the regulatory landscape governing data privacy, recognize categories of protected information, and develop protocols for safe AI use in your grant practice. Before diving into details, we must establish a critical warning that should guide all your AI interactions. Public AI tools, including ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and similar services, may use your inputs for training purposes unless you have specific enterprise agreements stating otherwise. This means any information you enter could potentially appear in responses to other users or be stored in ways you cannot control. Protected health information, known as PHI, includes any health-related data that could identify an individual. Student records protected under the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA, require strict confidentiality. Personally identifiable information encompasses names, addresses, social security numbers, and other identifying details. Proprietary research data, especially embargoed findings awaiting publication, could compromise intellectual property or violate research agreements. Confidential grant content and funder communications often contain sensitive organizational information. Treat every public AI tool as an insecure channel unless your organization has verified privacy guarantees through enterprise agreements. The fundamental risk with AI tools centers on data exposure. When you enter information into a public AI system, that data may be retained and potentially used to train future versions of the model. This means your confidential information could theoretically surface in responses to completely unrelated queries from other users. The implications extend beyond mere inconvenience. Non-disclosure agreements, or NDAs, that you or your organization have signed may be violated if confidential information is shared with AI systems. Your institution almost certainly has data governance policies that restrict how sensitive information can be processed and stored. Violations of privacy laws like HIPAA or FERPA carry significant financial penalties and can result in loss of federal funding eligibility. Perhaps most importantly, data breaches cause lasting reputational damage. Funders, research participants, and partner organizations trust you to protect their information. Breaching that trust through careless AI use can damage relationships that took years to build. The convenience of AI assistance never justifies these risks. HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, establishes national standards for protecting health information. If your grant work involves health data in any way, understanding HIPAA is essential. The law applies to covered entities, which include healthcare providers, health plans, and healthcare clearinghouses, as well as their business associates. Protected health information under HIPAA encompasses any individually identifiable health information, whether oral, written, or electronic. This includes obvious medical records, but also extends to appointment schedules, billing information, and any data that connects health conditions to identifiable individuals. The penalty structure for HIPAA violations is tiered based on the level of culpability. Simple violations where the covered entity was unaware can result in penalties of $100 to $50,000 per violation. Violations due to willful neglect that are corrected within 30 days face penalties up to $50,000 per violation. Willful neglect not corrected carries minimum penalties of $50,000 per violation. Criminal penalties, including imprisonment, are possible for deliberate violations. These penalties make clear that entering PHI into public AI tools represents an unacceptable risk. The Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, known as FERPA, protects the privacy of student education records. This federal law applies to all educational institutions that receive funding from the U.S. Department of Education, which includes virtually all public schools and most private institutions. FERPA protects a broad range of records directly related to students, including grades, transcripts, class schedules, disciplinary records, and financial aid information. The law requires schools to obtain written consent from parents or from students who have reached age 18 before disclosing personally identifiable information from education records. For grant professionals working in educational settings or conducting research involving students, FERPA compliance is essential. Entering student information into AI tools without proper authorization violates FERPA requirements. The primary enforcement mechanism is the potential loss of federal funding, which can be devastating for educational institutions. Even if your organization is not the primary holder of educational records, research agreements typically include FERPA compliance requirements that flow through to all project personnel. Treat student data with the same care you would apply to health information. Personally identifiable information, or PII, encompasses any data that could be used to identify a specific individual. Understanding PII categories helps you recognize what information requires protection. Direct identifiers are obvious: names, social security numbers, driver's license numbers, passport numbers, and physical addresses directly point to specific individuals. Indirect identifiers are less obvious but equally important. Dates of birth, geographic indicators like zip codes, employment information, and unique physical characteristics can identify individuals, especially when combined. The combination risk deserves particular attention. Research has shown that just 3 pieces of indirect information, birth date, gender, and zip code, can uniquely identify over 80% of Americans. This means seemingly innocuous data combinations become identifying when aggregated. Biometric data represents an increasingly important PII category. Fingerprints, facial recognition patterns, and voice signatures are permanent identifiers that cannot be changed if compromised. Online identifiers like IP addresses and device identifiers can track individuals across digital platforms. When using AI tools, consider whether any combination of information you enter could identify specific individuals, even if no single piece of data seems identifying on its own. Research data presents unique privacy considerations beyond personal information. Embargoed research findings awaiting publication represent significant intellectual property. Entering such data into AI tools could potentially expose findings before publication, compromising the researcher's ability to establish priority and potentially violating agreements with journals or sponsors. Proprietary methodologies developed through years of research may be protected by institutional policies or sponsor agreements. Sharing these approaches with AI systems could expose competitive advantages. Institutional Review Board, or IRB, protocols for human subjects research typically specify exactly how data should be handled, stored, and protected. These protocols rarely anticipate AI tool use and generally would not permit entering subject data into public systems. Sponsor agreements, particularly with industry partners, often include strict confidentiality provisions governing research data. Federal sponsors like the National Institutes of Health, or NIH, and the National Science Foundation, or NSF, have their own data management requirements. International research collaborations add another layer of complexity, as data may be subject to multiple regulatory frameworks, including the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR. Always review your specific agreements and protocols before using AI tools with any research data. Your institution almost certainly has data governance policies that apply to AI tool use, even if those policies were written before AI became prevalent. Most institutional data classification systems use tiered categories. Public data can be freely shared without restriction. Internal data is for organizational use only, but carries minimal risk if exposed. Confidential data requires protection and should not be shared outside authorized channels. Restricted data demands the highest level of protection, typically including encryption and access controls. AI tool use policies vary significantly across organizations. Some institutions have issued explicit guidance, while others are still developing their approaches. Large research universities and healthcare systems tend to have more developed policies given their exposure to HIPAA and research data requirements. Your institution's privacy officer, IT security team, and legal counsel are essential resources. Before using any AI tool with work-related data, consult these offices to understand applicable policies. If your institution lacks explicit AI guidance, apply your existing data classification policies. As a default practice, assume data is restricted until you confirm otherwise. The temporary inconvenience of checking policies is far preferable to the consequences of a data breach. When you need AI assistance with content that relates to real situations, data anonymization provides a pathway for safe use. Anonymization involves removing or obscuring identifying information so that individuals cannot be identified from the data. Start by removing all direct identifiers. Replace actual names with generic placeholders like Participant A or Organization X. Use fictional addresses or simply reference general geographic regions. Remove dates of birth, social security numbers, and other unique identifiers entirely. Generalize demographic details that could narrow identification. Instead of a 37-year-old Hispanic female from rural Montana, describe demographics in broader terms that could apply to many individuals. Consider re-identification risks carefully. Remember that combinations of seemingly innocent details can identify individuals. A project manager at a small nonprofit in a specific city working on a unique program might be easily identifiable even without their name. Document your anonymization process. This documentation demonstrates due diligence if questions arise later and helps establish consistent practices across your team. Some AI tools offer features specifically designed for handling sensitive data, but verify these claims carefully before relying on them. Generic framing offers another approach for obtaining AI assistance without exposing sensitive information. Instead of describing your actual situation, frame questions around hypothetical scenarios that capture the essence of your need without revealing confidential details. Rather than asking AI to help you write about your specific research participant who experienced a particular outcome, ask for guidance on writing about participant outcomes in your general research area. The AI can provide helpful frameworks and language that you then adapt to your specific situation. Request templates and examples rather than asking AI to generate your specific content. A template for a budget justification or a general example of writing about program outcomes gives you useful structure without requiring you to share confidential details. Ask for general guidance applicable across contexts. Instead of seeking advice about your specific funder relationship, ask about common strategies for funder communication. Frame questions around categories and types rather than individuals. Discuss how to present findings from qualitative research generally rather than sharing your actual interview data. Use industry standard examples that AI already knows about rather than providing your own proprietary data. This approach captures AI's analytical capabilities while protecting your confidential information. Enterprise versions of AI tools offer privacy protections beyond what public versions provide. Major AI providers, including OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, and Microsoft, offer enterprise agreements with specific privacy guarantees for organizational customers. Under typical enterprise agreements, your organizational data is not used to train the AI model. This addresses the primary concern about information appearing in other users' responses. Data remains within a controlled environment subject to your organizational policies and the specific contractual terms. However, enterprise solutions require careful verification. Do not assume that having an enterprise account automatically provides full privacy protection. Read the specific terms of your agreement carefully. Understand what data protections apply and what limitations exist. Clarify data retention policies and deletion procedures. Enterprise solutions typically cost more than public AI tools, but this investment is appropriate when working with sensitive information. Many organizations find that the combination of public tools for general tasks and enterprise solutions for sensitive work provides an effective balance. Consult with your IT department and legal counsel to understand what enterprise AI options your organization has authorized and what specific protections those agreements provide. Beyond understanding policies and risks, developing personal protocols for AI use helps ensure consistent, safe practice. These habits become automatic with practice, reducing the cognitive burden of privacy decisions while maintaining protection. The pause before pasting approach creates a moment of reflection before every AI interaction. Before copying any content into an AI tool, pause and consciously consider whether the information contains anything sensitive. This brief pause interrupts automatic behavior and creates space for thoughtful decision-making. Classify data before every AI interaction. Ask yourself what category this information falls into under your institutional data governance framework. If you cannot quickly determine the classification, treat the data as restricted until you verify otherwise. Create a personal checklist for AI use. List the types of information you handle regularly, and note which categories are safe for AI input and which require protection. Having this checklist visible near your workspace serves as a constant reminder. Establish habits for anonymization and generic framing. When you need AI help with sensitive topics, automatically think about how to frame requests without revealing protected information. Build and review steps before submitting prompts. Read through what you are about to submit and consciously verify that no protected information is included. Individual practices become more effective when embedded within team and organizational frameworks. As a grant professional, you can help establish and model good practices for your colleagues. Clear team guidelines for AI use should specify what tools are approved, what types of data can and cannot be entered, and what review processes apply. These guidelines should be documented and easily accessible. Include AI policies in onboarding processes for new team members. People joining your organization should understand AI expectations from their first day before they have opportunity to develop problematic habits. Provide ongoing training on data classification and privacy as they relate to AI. Training should include concrete examples relevant to your specific work context. Abstract policies become meaningful when illustrated with scenarios people actually encounter. Create clear reporting mechanisms for potential breaches. If someone realizes they may have entered sensitive data into an AI tool, they should know whom to contact and what steps to take. A blame-free reporting culture encourages transparency and enables rapid response. Regular reviews and updates keep policies current as the AI landscape evolves. What seems cutting edge today may be obsolete tomorrow, and new risks emerge as technology advances. Despite best intentions, privacy incidents may occur. Knowing how to respond appropriately minimizes harm and demonstrates professional responsibility. If you realize you may have entered sensitive information into a public AI tool, act immediately. Document exactly what information was shared. Be specific and comprehensive, as this documentation will guide response decisions. Note the AI tool used, the date and time, and the nature of the information entered. Report immediately to appropriate institutional offices. This typically includes your privacy officer, IT security, and possibly legal counsel. Do not try to assess the severity yourself or decide that the incident is too minor to report. Let qualified personnel make those determinations. Follow your institutional incident response procedures. These procedures exist for good reasons and should guide your actions. Cooperate fully with any investigation or assessment. Assess notification requirements for affected parties. Privacy laws often require notification of individuals whose data has been compromised. Your institution's privacy officer will help determine whether notification is required and handle the process appropriately. Finally, use the incident as a learning opportunity. Review and strengthen your practices to prevent recurrence. A genuine response to mistakes includes changing behavior going forward. Today's lesson established foundational principles for protecting sensitive data when using AI tools in grant work. We began with a critical warning: never input protected health information, student records, personally identifiable information, proprietary research data, or confidential grant content into public AI tools. The risks of data exposure, including regulatory violations, contractual breaches, and reputational damage, are simply too significant. We examine the regulatory landscape governing data privacy, including HIPAA requirements for health information, FERPA protections for educational records, and the various categories of personally identifiable information. Research data considerations and institutional data governance add additional layers of protection requirements. Safe AI use practices include data anonymization, removing or obscuring identifying information before AI input, and generic framing, describing hypothetical scenarios rather than real situations. Enterprise AI solutions offer additional protections but require verification of specific contractual terms. Personal protocols, team practices, and incident response procedures complete a comprehensive approach to data privacy in AI use. In our next lesson, we explore organizational AI policy development, examining how to create comprehensive frameworks for responsible AI use across your organization. Thank you for engaging with these essential concepts about protecting sensitive information.